directly tied to social justice, but also own slaves. It's kind of, there's a lot going on there. Washington University in St. Louis, if you're into tech, it's an incredibly competitive school and difficult to get into. If you're from the Midwest, again, if you got into Stanford and you got into WashU at St. Louis, if you lived in the Midwest, no one's going to Stanford, they're going to WashU because that's the place to go. And then rounding out, here's Davis at 28, and UC San Diego at 28, and the University of Florida, and I think if you go one more, we'll be at 30. No, USC is there. Ooh, USC dropped a lot. What happened? USC dropped a lot. Oh, I know why. Yeah, keep going. And then, there we go. University of Texas. So the interesting thing is, like, a lot of you might think, oh my God, like, that the UCs, you wouldn't think that the UCs are, the top UCs are comparable to the University of Florida, right? Because of the way that you've been trained to think of UCs as them being up here, but they're actually around the University of Florida. The University of Texas at Austin. USC fell, and I know why USC fell. USC built this, gosh, I think it's about $500 million of a new complex. And then they got Dr. Dre, oddly enough, gave a huge, I think he gave $100 million to make a new music production and music school there, which is incredible and everything. But they had huge, almost $1 billion in investment in 2020. So nobody went, I mean, it was in the middle of the pandemic. And so they didn't have the balance out, and part of how the rankings are sort of your fiscal management, and that school had more money going out at a time in which like schools were crashing, and it didn't get it back. It'll always get it back because it'll always get the money back from its alumni. And talk about alumni getting a lot of money. USC's alumni is always more powerful. Okay, so there I have a breakdown of the top schools. So I would assume many of your parents think that all the UCs are in the top 10, and they're not. I think a lot of your parents think that Stanford is number one. It is not. Many of your parents think that there are a lot of schools that your parents have never heard of on this list that are incredibly good schools and incredibly high ranked, and that have a tremendous amount of financial aid dollars that you included, not just your parents, but that you have no idea about. It's your job to know them about that, because that's where you might go to school and you want to kind of go to the. I'm always trying to get you into the most schools that give you the most money. That's my job, right? And you should go to the best school that gives you the most money. Okay, now go to liberal arts schools. So these are all universities. Gavin, we've said this many times. What's the difference between a university and a liberal arts school? Anybody want to help Gavin out? No? Nobody remembers the difference between a university and a liberal arts school? Universities have graduate schools on them, right? Meaning you can go to med school, you can get an MBA, all the master's and PhD programs are there. Liberal arts schools tend not to have any graduate school students, which is a benefit to you because at universities the concentration would, a lot of that would be on graduate students. Okay. So there's that. Liberal arts schools, you can, if you're not limited to one field of study. Like if you are going to be an engineer, you can take classes in art, you can take classes in sociology, you can take classes in history. If you're a history major and you want to take physics, you can. You're not limited by that. You're there to go in there and take a lot of different things and discover what you want to do. It used to be traditionally that like universities set kids up better for graduate school. Now liberal arts schools tend to set kids up better for graduate schools because the kids coming out of liberal arts schools have a wider and more in-depth education in many different things, and they tend to be able to have better, more integrated ideas, and so their acceptance into grad schools either equal or rival kids that are coming from universities. So we have Williams is number one. Next is Amherst. So these are the top colleges, right? Okay, and then let's go. The United States Naval Academy. There are there are 4 military schools that are all 100. You see NA in the corner. They're 100% free because they're funded by the government. However, if you go to these schools, you then have to enter the military. You become an officer in the military. So the Naval Academy, there's Air Force, there's Army. So you can decide if that's for you. I've only sent 3 kids to these schools in the past, and they were all pre-Olympian athletes because they have really good programs in athletics because of the connection to the military. Some of them, I mean, obviously there's much fewer women who go to these schools because it's a military-based school. You do have to be an American citizen to go to them. I do not encourage. Well, here I go. I do not encourage anybody to go into the military academies because I don't believe that it is a safe time to put young people of color into the American military. We're about to go into what is probably a Trump presidency in a very volatile world, and I don't think it's a good time to be in the American military. Not that it was ever a good time to be in the American military. I say that I'm like, when would I have sent kids to it? Never. I think, what? Well, the Olympians don't go to war. So I didn't worry about it. The Olympians don't go to war. But the other people do. I mean, yeah. I know somebody who's my age who went to Annapolis, and they ended up in Afghanistan in Desert Storm, and you got to go and kill people. I don't know if any of you in here want to go kill other poor people in other nations. That's probably not good. I ascribe to, don't be people of color in America. Okay. Scroll down. There's Pomona College. That's where Johnny Eck. So it's number 4 in the nation. So if you went and talked to Johnny Eck, that's where he's on the board of directors. Swarthmore College is there also for. Notice that it goes 4, 4, and then if you go, and there are a lot of them ranked at the same, and then you go, and then it's much farther. It's because if 4 people are ranked at 4, then it has to drop down to 8, right? Because it took a 4. So there's vertical ranking, and then there's horizontal ranking. Okay, so that's why I don't say, oh, it's 20th second. It's something that's 22nd could actually be in horizontal ranking 5th, you understand? Because it's this way. Okay. So then we have Swarthmore. Swarthmore is interesting. Swarthmore is a Quaker school, and it's led by these sort of radical white people. It was founded by these radical white people. Very, very early on, it had people of color, and it had women, and it had gay professors, and it just is way out there, and sort of a radical ideology, and they produce really cool people. Okay, next one. Wellesley, I think that you should go to Wellesley. There it is. It's number 4 in the nation. It is a all-women's school. However, there are men that go there because MIT and Holy Cross, which are very close to that, those people can take classes on Wellesley's campus, and Wellesley students can go and take classes at MIT because they're brother and sister school. You can kind of go as you will. Wellesley is in Wellesley, Massachusetts, which is about 45 minutes outside of Boston. Wellesley College is also interesting in that because it's a women's college, everything is run by women. It is a different. Remember, I said there were 7 Ivy League schools, and then there were 7 sister schools because originally women weren't allowed to go to the Ivy Leagues. So Wellesley is here, and it's sort of the premier women's college. It is run by women of color. Its head of school, its head of academics, its head of student life are all women of color. So if you can imagine, you give the most prestigious women of color with insane resumes. These women have insane resumes. And then you give them, 200 years of compounded interest money. What do they make? Right? I mean, what opportunities would they give to who? Wellesley College also has a huge amount of Chinese students because some of its most famous alumni was Madam Chiang Kai-shek and Madam Sun Yat-sen. So that's why that they have so much money, because they early on, the sort of the first ladies of Taiwan and the national movement were graduates of Wellesley College. Its main student center and its central academic building all have Chinese names on them because the Chinese community continues to give a great deal of money to Wellesley College. Okay, next one. Here's another Air Force Academy. At Air Force Academy, they always use these photographs where they're all in uniform, because when they graduate, they throw their caps in the air, and if you look in there, you'll see that they're fighter jets. They fly fighter jets over their graduations in a show of military force. Yeah. Then you'll see United States Military Academy of West Point is next. That's another one. That's Army. So we have now seen, what have we seen? We see the Navy. Here's the Air Force, and here the Marines are So West Point is about 15 minutes away from Vassar, where I went to school, so we would see a lot of the West Point things, and we would go to their events and their parties, and their Asian Student Union and our Asian Student Union used to have mixers and parties together. Those guys are nuts. All I can say is these kids would come in with shaved heads and fat lips and black eyes, and they'd be like, yeah, my CO punched me in the face, and it was amazing. And I'm like, that's not amazing. You got assaulted, But it's that level. They're like, yeah, and they also, so they have to, at the same time they're going to college, they're also training to be officers. So they have boot camp. You gotta be able to shoot things and they take tactical stuff. The funniest thing that ever happened, I went to a party there. Okay, so the West Point dudes are a little weird. They invited us to an event that we thought was like an Asian students event, or a students of color event, and so we all went, and we didn't realize that we were actually these people's dates to a thing, which is weird. Don't ever do that. That's very strange. But so I ended up this Korean kid who whatever, and when you walk into a party at West Point, they cross the sabers. They have two military guys with swords that hold these things, and then you walk underneath there, and then somebody announces your name and where you're from. So it's the first time I'd ever gotten anywhere, and they're like, yes, Sally Matsuishi from Santa Fe and the great state of California, and I just cracked up because that's funny. No one shows off about being from Santa Fe, California. So, but at West Point, they do. They wear full uniforms and white gloves. They walk in lockstep. They when they get into classroom, they salute their professor. It's like a different part. But you want full ride for all 4 years, and if you complete any of the academies, you also get a free master's degree or PhD if you want it, and you get entry into the military at an officer's salary. So that's somewhere an automatic guaranteed salary of over $100,000, and then you get no cost loans on housing, and you get to live all over the world, but you have to go and kill people. I don't know. Next one. Bowdoin, Kelly. That's the best, if you're looking for stuff about environmental science, environmental justice, Bowdoin is it is the most beautiful campus. I would argue more so than University of Hawaii at Manoa. It is the most beautiful campus in all of America. Those kids get up in the morning and they grab their lattes and their organic omelets, and then you can get in a kayak and kayak around the key and do your research in the forest. It's nuts, and they have a ton of that. Carleton College came bumped up a lot. It used to not ever be on this list, but they did a really, because it's in Minnesota and a lot of people didn't want to do that. They made it like if you are under $200,000, it's free. All your research is free. They offer so much to their students now because they want all the best students to come there because nobody was coming there. And so their graduation rates are really, really high. And what they did in order to sort of come up in the rankings is they offered middle class and even upper class kids full rides. And so if they guaranteed to come and stay 4 years. So their yield rates got really high and their 4-year graduation rates got really high and they got top students. So they're kids that would like have to pay $50,000 a year at Stanford were getting free rides at Carleton, so they went to a lot of middle class kids at Carleton, and that bumped them up like 20 spaces. It's an interesting thing. Barnard, also on your list. It's a women's college. It's called the Yoke. Columbia is in the city of New York. It's an Ivy League school, and there's like this, and then it's women's colleges right in the middle. Remember I said there were 7 Ivy League colleges and 7 sisters colleges? So Columbia just sucked in its women's college and put it in the center. So oftentimes Barnard is called the Yoke of the big. So it's right in there. But I did not have enough self-control to go to this school or Columbia or NYU because it's right in the middle of the heart of New York City. I personally would have never studied. Like, if I had the ability to just at any moment just be in the middle of New York City and do whatever I want, I don't have that level of self-control. So you have to decide whether or not you have that level of self-control. I mean, it's a crazy level of self-control. Right? Yeah. So next one. Where are we? Okay, Claremont McKenna. So with Pomona, there's the five C's, the 5 colleges in the Claremont colleges, which is a consortium. Claremont McKenna is its economics, political science, sort of business wing. It is the most conservative of the 5 schools there. It has a ton of money, and is that okay? That is next. That's weird. It's taken from inside. So Claremont McKenna has this classroom that is a mirrored cube that you can see out of, but people can't see in, and it floats on a pond of water. And it's supposed to. It feels very like. It feels like very X-Men. You know, you think you'd be in there, you know, plotting things to take a little look because it looks very superhero-y. But it's kind of one of their favorite things. What's odd about this is they didn't photograph the classroom, but see how it's on a body of water? It's just taken from inside the classroom looking out, which is weird because it doesn't make sense. Okay, next thing. Middlebury is in Vermont. It's a classic liberal arts school, pretty terrific, tons of money. Middlebury and Wesleyan, these are like identical schools, just in 2 different places, the next one down. These are very traditional liberal arts schools. They're incredibly progressive. They're incredibly social justice based. If you're interested in queer and trans studies, they have really interesting stuff. Their gender studies is really strong. But they are both in the middle of nowhere. But if you want like a huge, pretty New England experience on a beautiful campus, that's that. Keep going. I'm not going to go all the way. Davidson is also in North Carolina. This is another school. Hamilton and Davidson both did the same things in order to jump in these rankings, that they started giving huge middle class scholarships. So they were previously lower and they found a loophole through. So there's a lot of controversy around this practice because it didn't mean they had better education or better professors or better programs. They just jumped by having a higher yield and matriculation numbers. And they did that just by throwing a lot of money at middle class kids. Okay, keep going. Harvey Mudd is part of the Claremont Colleges. It is its science and technology wing. It rivals Caltech, MIT, rise in terms of an engineering and STEM school. It's incredibly nice about it, though. That's different than MIT and Caltech, is because it's one of the 5 C's. You don't have to spend your whole time with STEM people if you go here. You could be in a small liberal arts college and get all these. Oh, also, if you're at Caltech or you're at UC Berkeley or you're at MIT, those classes are huge. This is a liberal arts school, right? You get the same ranking of college, but instead of having 700 people in your classroom, you have 40 in your classroom. And also, and this is going to seem whatever, I'll say it. If you don't want to be around STEMmy type people all the time, some people want people who go out and go to parties and go junior year abroad and have friends and like to dance on the weekend, or have a social life versus the staying in your room and playing a lot of video games. Go to Harvey Mudd, because those people tend to have more. I will just quote somebody because I don't want to say it. It's always quoted that the Harvey Mudd engineers have way more social skills than like the Caltech. Like you can, yeah, they have something to say. They have opinions. They're sort of funny. Smith is another Seven Sisters school, much like Wellesley and Vassar College, where I went. So we're in 16. So these are both Seven Sisters schools and whatever. That's if you look at, so Vassar has a lake, and a golf course, and it's just funny things because they own all the land in the Hudson River Valley or wherever it is. So it's incredibly pretty. But I've talked a lot about it, so I'm going to keep going. Colgate, that's actually the Colgate family. If you use Colgate toothpaste, it is actually them. People are like, oh, is it the toothpaste we buy? It is. And it has a lot of money. It's in Hamilton, New York. It's really small. So, and oh, by the way, some of these, the Middlebury is really small. Wesleyan is really small, like under 3,000 students. So it's like some of them are smaller than your high schools, which is pretty terrific because there's enough people that you can get to know new people every year and have a lot of friends, but small enough in which your classes are small, your professors will know you. Haverford, same thing. Scroll down. Haverford is another small liberal arts college. There's a lot of them. Washington Lee in Lexington, Virginia. This is a southern liberal arts school. It is interesting. In that two things. People are like, oh, I don't want to go to school in the South, in the deep South. I would argue, like, the progressiveness and things that are happening in Washington Lee are much more interesting than is happening on a lot of these other colleges because you have the presence of black people, right? A lot of these schools don't have that presence of black people, just like the UCs really don't have black people. You can't get a good and Latinx people are the largest growing community of color. Indigenous people are barely registering as even a data point at a lot of UCs. You can't. Your education is better in a more diverse environment. Your education is better when you have people that come from more socioeconomic backgrounds in more states. Your education is better when you're not in an echo chamber just hearing from other people who are like you. Or worse, if you're in a school in which no one is talking and you're all the same. That's just, you're just not competitive. Yes.
Check mark.
I don't know. Hit the information thing.
It means that they put information in songs.
Oh, okay. You know why this is? There are 3 schools, big, famous schools, that aren't here because they fudged their data. There's a huge controversy over fudging data because it was all self-reported, and they were reporting things fraudulently. And so there are some schools that came up the list that aren't really as great. Not because they didn't fudge their data, but because there were some big schools that fell. So if big schools fall because they fudged it, then the ones that are down here move up. So it's a little weird, right? Like Bates was never in the top 30. Okay. So keep going down. Bates also, If you're not good enough to get into Bowdoin, because Bowdoin's really competitive, Bates and Colby are also in Maine. They're also terrific schools. They also have really good environmental science programs, and they also are in beautiful places, but they're much smaller and not as competitive. Okay, moving up. See, like undergraduate enrollment at Colby is 2,299 students. Bates is 1,790. Like, how many kids go to Lowell?
2007.
Yeah, so it's 1,000 people larger than this college. So imagine what kind of attention you could get, and like research you could do with a professor, or money that they could attribute to you to be able to do whatever project you have. I mean, there's only 6, and then that's divided by 4 classes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts, right? Okay, so let's go down a little bit more, and then we'll be back. University of Richmond, Virginia, College of the Holy Cross. So College of the Holy Cross is right next door to Wolsey. Like you can like look out your door at Wolsey and see Holy Cross. Holy Cross is interesting in that it is it's a incredibly vibrant school, and it's religious. So you do not have to be Christian to go there, although the majority of people who do are. And because of this, it has a pretty strong social justice bent to it, within reason, though. Holy Cross is not going to be doing a lot for women's right to abortion. Holy Cross is not going to be doing a lot for queer and trans, rights and whatever. But Holy Cross will be doing a lot of stuff for the poor, and Holy Cross will be doing a lot of stuff for sort of children's and women's things. Now, I want to counter that with, you cannot serve the poor. Well, I'm not talking about abortion. You cannot serve the poor with, or children or families. I'm talking about queer trans people. To differentiate and to separate those things out, in my opinion, is you're not actually serving the poor, because some of the poorest people are trans people, and some of the largest reasons for poverty in this country is because people did not have access to abortion. So my counter argument to selective social justice study is on the basis of religion, is that I think it would be better, in my opinion, to be a religious person. By the way, I just want to I come from a really, really religious family. Like, I grew up and there's like chanting all the time in my house, and my great uncle founded the Conco Temple in San Francisco. I mean, like these are like really religious people. My mother, if you get into her car and you turn the car on, chanting will turn on the car. My mother chants while driving. Okay, so I would argue that if you want to do social justice work, and while Holy Cross does have stuff, if I really wanted to do true work around poverty, go to Columbia. It's in Harlem. Go to the University of Chicago. Go to places where they're going to look at poverty intersectionally. They're not going to say poverty, but not this part of poverty, poverty, but not that. That's my thought. Okay, so I'm done. I just wanted to go through so you know. So if you don't know these schools, ask yourself why you don't know these schools, right? If you want to go to the top schools in the nation, I just showed you the top 3%. Those are the top 3% of schools in the nation. Now, some of you are like, oh, I'm never going to get the top 3% of schools in the nation. This list goes on for 300 schools. So you can go and see where you fit in and whatever. Also know, if you are rare at the University of Richmond, you are rare at Holy Cross, you are not rare at San Francisco State, right? The quality of you being unusual goes up if you go farther away. The question is, going far away, like, I don't want to go far away. What if I go, what if something happens? It is a 7-hour drive between here and UCLA, and it is a 9-hour drive between here and UC San Diego. It is a 7-hour plane hike home from Maine. which is the furthest point from here, right? So if it's either a 7-hour plane ride or a 7-hour. You can get home in an hour on a plane from California. So if you're taking planes, if you're worried about the cost, most of you are low income enough that the cost of your plane flights will probably be covered by your scholarship, so you can come home whenever you can. In the end, most people after the first year come home about the same. So like, also you have to worry about yourself a little bit. If you're coming home every weekend from your college to home, you're doing it wrong. You shouldn't be home every weekend. You should be on campus, working on projects, going out, finding other people to do things with, working on clubs, figuring out whatever. If you go to college, like if you go to Davis and you come home every weekend, or you go to Berkeley and you come home every weekend, other people aren't, and they're getting more done. And probably more done time, I don't know. You have to wonder why you haven't made your community or found your community enough to do that. I can see coming home every now and then, but every weekend. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this? Any specific school questions? Any like, how if I did go to school on the East Coast, how do I get back and forth? What happens if I get homesick? Can I get a chashu bao there? I don't know. Other kids have asked me these questions before. Yes.
Which school has
Oh, this is a very good question. To be honest with you, Cornell University, because it used to have the hotel restaurant management program. However, the best food is at University of Hawaii at Manoa, because it has the resort. Like they have a whole school in their business school preparing people to run resorts. So there's a, but again, don't go to school for the food. That's a stupid thing. Like nobody says, "Oh my God, they went to a lesser school, but they ate real well for 4 years." I mean, your food is food, and it's probably going to be better than anything you've eaten here. Some the food at is pretty good. There's pretty much like 5 companies that run all colleges' food. So like Host, I think is one of them, runs UC Berkeley's food, and it also runs the food services at Cornell. So it is what it is. But again, no, don't make based on food. Anything else? Yes.
How do you talk to your parents about moving away?
This is a really good question. When I was applying to school, I applied with these 2 teachers at my high school who helped me do the whole thing. I got into Vassar, and then it was a matter of like, how do I convince my grandparents to let me go? We had this like Atlas of America. I don't know why immigrant people always have like maps of America, but we had this map of America, and you opened it up, and it was like the whole country. And my grandmother put her hand down in the middle, and said, "Japanese girls don't go past here." And then she said, where is Vassar College? And I was like, oh, it's like, where over here? I think my grandparents had things about like, if you lived in a dorm, you were a whore. That was popular. Like if you were loose or somehow, that you'd be slutty if you lived in a dorm. There were certain things that my purpose to go to college was to find a good husband. There were like, and whether or not there were Japanese boys at this school for which I could marry was discussed. Like, were there good Asian boys that went to this school? I don't know. I did get there. There were 3 Japanese American boys at Vassar College, and 2 of them were gay. So I would have just had to marry with 1 dude. So there were a ton of Japanese nationals, which my family would have. Oh. I lucked out because there was 2 things. The Prime Minister of Japan's daughter went there, and that was like huge. That like changed the tide for me. I had a cousin, a much older cousin, my cousin Troy, who went to Yale, and he kind of opened the door for me. Like I made Troy go. And we talked about Troy a lot. Troy's parents had huge dreams for him. Troy's name was Troy because they wanted him when he was born to go to USC, Tommy Trojan and the Trojans and Troy, and that's why Troy's name is Troy, and that's really embarrassing for Troy now. But Troy had gone to Yale, although he's like 15 years older than me and male. So, I mean, it didn't really apply. I had to be quite frank, if your parents come in and I can explain to them and I can show them the rankings and I can show them, and I can even explain to them, like, rich Asians in San Francisco, when their kids get into these schools, they have huge celebrations and invite everybody. And so the opportunity is there, and the amount of money that they can give away is there, and that you will come home and you have to promise to, like, FaceTime every Friday and do all the things. But I can help you. My 2 teachers came to my house. They did not speak Japanese, and they actually, like, talked. I mean, I think they were very touched as a teacher, very much, to help me do that. And then my parents kind of got on board to help me. My mother, as a young woman, had wanted to go to Wellesley, but her parents didn't allow her to go. My father did not want me to go. And not because of, like, you're a whore if you live in a dorm. He didn't believe things like that. It's just we're really close, and he would be sad. Mm-hmm. It was very much he would be sad. And I was sad to leave him, but it was worth doing. I sent all my kids to East Coast schools. I think it's because early on they started going, and then it became okay, and so then one after the other went. I don't know, Mia, what's hard about going to East Coast schools?
A lot of your friends won't be from here. Like, my friends who went to California schools, a lot of their friends moved back to San Francisco after college. And the con of that is, like, both them and their friends never really left, like, a 25-mile radius, and that's kind of a bummer. Like, I feel really fortunate to have had that experience. But I think sometimes it can be, like, a little lonely. Like, if you're here back for...
That's after graduation, though, right?
No, but I mean, like, if you're home for winter break and stuff like that. Although there's a ton of people from the Bay Area at all of these schools, I just didn't encounter them very much. But I feel like it's mostly pros. You get to experience, like, weather for the first time. That's really cool. Yeah, eat a lot of foods that you haven't eaten before, because, like, people immigrate from different places to the East Coast. So, like, we don't get a lot of good, like, Dominican food, Cambodian food, so, I don't know.
I like that everything I did was completely me. And that sounds weird, but the level of independence that I could have and the level of experience that I could have, if I went into a room, it was like, that's my room. Like, I had friends from all over the world, from all different types of experiences, not just people who are exactly like me. I liked the weather. I loved fall and spring in the East Coast. They actually have fall colors. I went to a college that, if you've seen movies about college, you've probably seen my campus. They film a lot of movies there. People come and get married on my campus because it's so beautiful, and the dorms, and there's just like a sense of history in a school that you don't get in California schools. In my cafeteria at Yale, there was this giant moose head above the grand oak table where everybody ate. It looks like you know in Harry Potter where they all eat in that grand hall. It looked like that. And there's a giant moose head at the end, and if you went and looked at it, that moose was shot by Teddy Roosevelt and brought back and given as a gift to the university. I mean, there's stuff like that. There's weird stuff. I studied regularly in the Eleanor Roosevelt room because Eleanor Roosevelt was there, and that was her room. There were tourists that would come by my dorm because I lived in the dorm room next that Jackie Kennedy, JFK's wife, was at. They're just, people would come and take selfies by things because it had been in a movie, or Anne Hathaway was there. I don't know. There was all kinds of weird stuff. So and more recently, I've had students that have graduated from these schools. Yeah, you're going to be different. You're going to be different than the people who went to UC. You're going to be different than the people who stayed in the same state. You will be different. And you may want to be different. You know? Oh, I always ask this: are you willing to go to out of state? And people are like, no. And I say, you do realize then University of Portland, right? UC San Diego is farther away than schools in Seattle. So, is it the state line, like the thing that they put in, that's drawn, or that you don't want to go to, or is it the distance? I mean, University of Seattle is a tremendous school, and they have the Sterling Fellowship there, and you can go all 4 years for free with guaranteed publishing. It's a terrific deal if you're a great student. The University of Seattle is pretty good. UW, University of Washington, terrific school, and it's actually not as far away as other schools entirely. So, have thought. Oh, environmental science, Lewis and Clark. Oh my God, it's in Oregon, in the most beautiful place. Great environmental science program. So, I didn't put that on your list. Put that on your list. It's really good. And they have a lot of money. Okay, any other questions other than, if you get in, I'll help you figure it out. Yes. All the universities that you go to, they will have classes in English, so it really doesn't matter what's best for an English-speaking person. I would argue it's better to go to one that is less English-speaking, so that you actually learn the language. Some of these people, they like, especially the ones in like Seville, Spain, and stuff. That there are certain places that are so used to having American study abroad students that like during it's like so many Americans that people just kind of go and create an American enclave in another country. I kind of like the study abroad where you actually are immersed in that country. But obviously London, Scotland, Ireland, any of those places. Hong Kong is another one people go to that's heavily English speaking. There's ones in Canada, I wouldn't go to Canada because it's so much like the United States. Unless you're there to do Indigenous studies, they have really good Indigenous studies abroad on homelands in Native homelands in Canada. Where else can you go? A lot of them are like French speaking, but that's generally what I say with that. But I wouldn't go to the heavily. I would go to the ones that your classes are in. Some of your classes are in English, but during the day that you're actually out, and the majority of people you're interacting with are from that country. Because otherwise, you'll just. It's hard to break this idea, but like if you all decided to study abroad, I wouldn't all go together because then you'll all stay together. And while that may feel safe in the moment, your experience will be so much richer if you go somewhere and an established program, right, with other people. But if you went to Atlanta, there's nobody from here there, right, or very few people, and then you meet other people. You do other things. You have experiences with other people that you wouldn't normally do. You did not live with a Chinese person in Atlanta. You lived with a giant autistic swimmer. And you learned all kinds of stuff, right? But if you lived with Waylon,
honestly, Waylon was kind of living with me.
okay. But other than Waylon kind of living with you, right? It's better that you didn't.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, guys.
Yeah, it's because you get a different experience, and it's going to be uncomfortable. Your life is not supposed to be comfortable. And it will be more adventures, and your life will be more interesting if you start moving out of here, start learning new things, asking new questions, and not going to somewhere looking for comfort, but going somewhere to looking for a new experience, going somewhere to look for a new idea, going somewhere to meet a new person. It's better than looking for comfort. Okay? And also, you'll find a new comfort. What is comfortable to you will grow, right? And that's good. Right now, your comfort zone is as big, right? All right. Any other questions? No? All right. So the 5 that are new, can you print up your ideas and put them on my desk? And can you also print up your transcript?